start off reading, and then meditation, martial arts, and yoga. And I invite you to join me. Make it your own. Evolutionary theory. Excerpt from our 2023 organizational resolution. The reality of the task we are engaged in is overwhelming by its very nature. The construction of a revolutionary party worthy of leading the working class to power in the 21st century is an undertaking of such astonishing enormity. It's a lot for a single person to contemplate. It takes a special perspective to do that. If you lose the perspective, it becomes impossible. In 1935, when Trotsky was exiled in France, he wrote the following entry in his diary. Life is not an easy matter. You cannot live through it without falling into prostration and cynicism unless you have before you a great idea which raises you above personal misery, above weakness, above all kinds of perfidy and baseness. He wrote this after receiving the news that Stalin was targeting his relatives within the Soviet Union, including his non-political son, Sergei Sadov, in an act of personal revenge. In those dark, tormenting days, it was Trotsky's ideas that carried him forward. They were a lifelong source of unshakable strength, energy, and optimism. Marxists in the U.S. today are not faced with the horrors of Stalinist repression, yet. The threat of police raids and exile that hounded the early Bolsheviks under Tsarism. But the pressures we face today are all the more insidious for their nebulous nature. While the ranks of the early Bolsheviks were constantly decimated by arrests and Serbian deportation, the greatest enemy targeting our ranks is quite simply life under capitalism. Lack of time, tiredness, anxiety, doomerism, alienation, etc. These pressures are the symptoms of a system at an impasse and will only intensify with time. But Marxists have always fought against alien class pressures in various forms. The fight for communism is also the fight against these demoralizing pressures, and we have only the idea that point to a brighter horizon. The fight to acquire ideas. The immensity of Marxism cannot be adequately conveyed in a short article. The weight of the ideas cannot be boiled down to a brief sketch of its conclusions any more than the earth-shaking spirit of Beethoven's symphonies can be shortened into a 30-second clip of highlights. A genuine appreciation of the Marxist worldview and what it can bring into our field of vision can only be acquired by delving patiently and persistently into the writings of Marx, Engels, Lenin, and Trotsky for ourselves. Over time, we begin to assimilate the method that runs through them, linking their thought into a single integral outlook. There's a side quote that says, none of the great Marxist thinkers were born ready-made Bolsheviks. They all exerted colossal efforts to raise themselves to the heights they achieved. It goes without saying that the ideas at the apex of history of philosophy are not conquered overnight, but they can be conquered given a serious commitment. None of the great Marxist thinkers were born with these views. They all exerted colossal efforts to raise themselves to the heights they achieved. The fight to acquire these ideas must be approached as a ferocious and conscious struggle to educate ourselves, with a determination to overcome all obstacles in our way. This is especially true in the US, where philosophical pragmatism runs rampant. It's an impatient yes or no outlook averse to dialectical thought. Don't bother with theoretical abstractions, just get the job done. We don't have to look far to see the imprint of this mentality on the left today in its aversion to Bolshevism and cadre building. They say, quote, "Okay, but what are you doing? What can you show for it? Have you won any elections?" This impatience is an obstacle that works against the task of laying a granite foundation for a genuine revolutionary movement. It's part of the American temperament that we must be aware of in order to overcome. In his discussions with the SWP in the 1930s, Trotsky insisted that there was nothing more important than educating American comrades in dialectical materialism. Pragmatism, empiricism, is the curse of American thought. You must inoculate younger comrades against its infection. A few years later, during 1939 to 40, factional struggle in the SWP, Trotsky seized the opportunity to raise the political level of the American comrades. He directed an appeal to the party youth to attempt to embed in their minds a serious theoretical foundation for revolutionary struggle. He called on them to study. Be aware of the infiltration of bourgeois skepticism into your ranks. Remember that socialism to this day has not found higher scientific expression than Marxism. Bear in mind that this method of scientific socialism is dialectical materialism. Occupy yourselves with serious study. Study Marx, Engels, Plekhanov, Lenin, and Franz Mehring. I haven't heard of the last one, I'll have to look into it. Even in theoretically minded Germany, Engels advised the leaders of the growing socialist movement to take a serious approach to studying the ideas as a counterforce against the dominant habits of bourgeois thought and public opinion. In particular, it will be the duty of the leaders to gain an ever clearer insight into all theoretical questions, to free themselves more and more from the influence of traditional phrases inherited from the old world outlook, and constantly to keep in mind that socialism, since it has become a science, demands that it be pursued as a science, that it be studied. To see the world through a Marxist lens is to think differently from the dominant mode of thinking. Alien class ideas are the default in this society. To cut through and see beyond the pervasive bourgeois ideology that surrounds us doesn't happen automatically. It takes hard work. Moreover, our world outlook is an integral and consistent one. The academics masquerading as Marxists in the universities treat theory like a fashionable piece of eyewear that can be exchanged at will for a feminist lens, a post-colonial lens, or a queer theory lens. We must reject the eclectic Betty bourgeois caricature of Marxism, and as Trotsky advised, learn to think. How the Bolsheviks studied Marx. In My Life, Trotsky describes the simple-minded efforts he put in over many years to conquer Marxism, starting with when he was 16 years old. Burning with impatience, I tried to grasp the ideas instinctively, but they were not so easy to master. I found no one about me to offer sure guidance. Every new conversation, moreover, forced me to come to the bitter, painful, and desperate conclusion that I was ignorant. I swallowed books, fearful that my entire life would not be long enough to prepare me for action. My reading was nervous, impatient, and unsystematic. 6 years later, having gone through the experience of Tsarist prisons and Serbian exile, I've been a political prisoner. Trotsky again related the internal impatience that drove him to learn. His intellectual appetite was stimulated by his first immigration to London in 1902, where he lived and worked in close proximity to Lenin, Plekhanov, and the rest of the Iskra editorial board. Still, his progress took effort. I took to studying the published issues of Iskra and the Review of Zarya, which came from the same offices. These were brilliant periodicals, combining scientific profundity with revolutionary passion. I actually fell in love with Iskra, and was so ashamed of my ignorance that I strained every nerve in my effort to overcome it. Soon I began to write for Iskra. At first it was only short notes, but a little later I wrote political articles and even editorials. In 1923, 5 years after the revolution, Trotsky looked back on the process of his own mental primitive accumulation from a perspective of political maturity. His famous advice to the youth was, "Don't spread yourself too thin." Even in prison, when I did nothing but read, It seemed that one couldn't get enough done in a day. In the ideological sphere, just as in the economic arena, the phase of primitive accumulation is the most difficult and troublesome. And only after certain basic elements of knowledge, and particularly elements of theoretical skill, method, have been precisely mastered and have become, so to speak, part of the flesh and blood of one's intellectual activity, does it become easier to keep up with the literature, not only in areas one is familiar with, but in adjacent and even more remote fields of knowledge, because method, in the final analysis, is universal. Trotsky was not alone in approaching his self-education as an insatiable driving force throughout his life. In his unfinished biography of Lenin, he described the intensity with the delight with which the latter climbed the rungs of Marxism, assimilating the method. Joyously and fervently, Vladimir advanced along this difficult road, summarizing each chapter, sometimes a single page, as he read and thought and verified the logical structure, the dialectical transitions, the terminology. To follow the development of Marx's thought, to feel its irresistible power, to discover deductions from incidental phrases or remarks, to renew each time his conviction of the truth and profundity of Marx's sarcasm, and to bow down with gratitude before this relentless genius. This became for Vladimir not only a necessity but a joy. Marx never had a more attentive reader or one in closer harmony with him, nor did Marx have a better, more perspective and grateful disciple. Far from reading theory as an intellectual pastime or a mental toy, Lenin saw it as a guide to action. Krupskaya describes Lenin's constant habit of consulting with Marx. At the most difficult turning points of the revolution, he once again turned to the reading of Marx. Sometimes when he went into his room, when everyone around was excited, Lenin was reading Marx, and could hardly tear himself away. It was not to quieten his nerves, nor to arm himself with belief in the power of the working class, belief in its ultimate victory. Lenin had sufficient of this faith. He buried himself in Marx so as to consult with Marx, to find a reply from him to the burning questions of the workers' movement. The wholehearted plunge into the depths of Marxist theory was by no means confined to the great theoreticians, Trotsky explained. Every working class party during its initial stages passes through a period of pure propaganda, i.e. the training of its cadres. The rank of worker Bolsheviks who made the victory of October 1917 possible, the general staff of the insurrection, were ordinary factory workers, students, and youth. Through tremendous sacrifices, they raised themselves up to the height of revolutionary Marxists. Plekhanov gave the following description of the average worker who passed through the Revolutionary Academy of the underground study circles in the 1890s. After working at the factory 10 to 11 hours a day and returning home only in the evening, he would sit at his books until 1 o'clock at night. I was struck by the variety and abundance of the theoretical questions which concerned him. Political economy, chemistry, social questions, and the theory of Darwin all occupied his attention. It would have taken decades for him to assuage his intellectual thirst. Under conditions of extreme repression, cultural backwardness, and isolation, the early cadres of Bolshevism managed to educate themselves in Marxist theory. Our forerunners risked everything to smuggle copies of the Communist Manifesto and other Marxist texts into Russia. Worker activists would share the precious material page by page, reading and discussing secretly by candlelight after grueling shifts in industrial plants. This is the type of political determination that forged the foundation of Bolshevism. Pressures of modern capitalism. Our modern context is a night and day contrast to the conditions facing the Bolsheviks. Some of the technical aspects of our work have been streamlined by the rise of the internet and other technological advancements. But the accompanying barrage of pressures, distractions, anxieties, and the pace of life under capitalism today can be enough to take the idea of a lengthy exile in a Serbian village sound tempting. But making a conscious decision to persevere along the path of Bolshevism is the first step. However, as materialists, we must recognize that many social and personal factors impact our political development, from time constraints to daily habits, to psychological and even neurological factors of our learning processes, including the impact of the devices we carry around in our pockets. Unlike the Bolsheviks, we can freely publish and ship copies of the Marxist classics across the country by hundreds and thousands. Virtually the entire archive of Marxist theory is at our fingertips. This gives us an immense advantage over previous generations of Marxists. If it were fully harnessed, we would expect to see a corresponding leap in the overall political level of the socialist movement. And yet, judging by the standard of debate across the left today in the US, it is arguably at its lowest point in history of our movement. This paradox stems in part from the contradictory character of the internet under capitalism. Technology that unlocked this treasure trove has also buried us under an unprecedented barrage of digital stimuli. Like the rest of the productive forces under capitalism, the internet is just another instrument at the service of the profit motive, not human well-being. The tech sector is one of the most massive concentrations of labor power, science, and productive resources the world has ever seen. Yet it is mobilized around a business model designed to extract data about individuals, which requires capturing as much of our attention as possible. There's an insert quote: "The barrage of pressures, distractions, and anxieties under capitalism today can be enough to make the idea of a lengthy exile in a Serbian village sound tempting." The combination of smartphones and social media has brought about a more dramatic shift in the way we spend our time and process information than any invention since the printing press itself. In the 2020s, many live in a state of near constant distraction and exhaustion, chronically sleep deprived, and spending hours each day on social media and other online content. As of February 2023, children between the ages of 11 and 14 spend an average of 9 hours a day on screens, while teens aged 15 to 18 average 7.5 hours. This amounts to a staggering 114 days a year spent online. We have only begun to understand the consequences of this, including its distorting effects on our ability to concentrate, read, learn, and think. With the understanding that conditions determine consciousness, Marxists should not be oblivious to such a dramatic change in conditions and its potential to impact our own consciousness. Our brains are extremely flexible and adaptable, and as the axiom of neuropsychology goes, neurons that fire together wire together. The shift from the era before social media to a world where many young people spend half their waking hours looking at a screen each day could hardly have taken place without impacting our nervous system and brains. Numerous studies have documented a general decline in reading habits and even the capacity to concentrate. One study found that office workers in 2004 would switch between tasks on average every 2.5 minutes. When the study was repeated in 2012, the average time spent on each task was 75 seconds. The last repetition of this study yielded an average of just 47 seconds of focus at a time. Another study found that 60% of 12th graders in 1980 said they read a book, newspaper, or magazine that wasn't assigned for school every day. But in 2016, only 16% said the same thing. Combined with the daily stressors of a life in a declining system, increasing precarity and casualization of labor, and constantly changing work schedules, itself a byproduct of managers having a direct 24/7 line to their employees, is it any wonder that mental health has taken such a hit in the last decade? For all the marketing about how the world has been brought together, it is clear that the atomized, individual-centered format of social media has only exacerbated the trends of alienation and loneliness in recent years. By nature, the internet is a medium for navigating through a vast ocean of content. It's an excellent resource for quickly finding relevant bits of information at a surface level. But over time, the habit of multitasking, surface level skimming, scanning, and scrolling can affect the way we read and process information. Neuroscientific research shows that when we interact with text on a screen, our eyes usually dart around to capture the information as quickly as possible, rather than giving our full attention to the way an argument is laid out. Much of the content we find online has itself been adapted to this format, presenting short, rapid sequences of bite-sized text. In fact, this is the nature of the social media format, the predominant format through which the exchange of ideas and culture is being filtered. Although we aim to fully harness the digital tools that can help people find their way to the communist organizing, the ideas of Marxism cannot be meaningfully learned, debated, or transmitted on social media. The task before us demands patience and discipline. Marxist cadres need minds that can go deep, and robust reading habits come from time spent with books, not TikToks or tweets. Taking into account what a massive change in conditions this represents, we can take active measures to fight against the stream and resist the pull of excessive screen time. Resisting the digital shallows. In considering the trends outlined above, chances are many comrades will take notice of their own daily digital habits. We all make conscious decisions about how we spend our money. Shouldn't we do the same for our time? Some comrades, upon honest reflection, may conclude that their daily digital habits are obstacles that stand in the way of serious struggle for self-education. Being a Bolshevik cadre means making sacrifices for a historic cause. We don't want or expect comrades to lead a Spartan existence. Our comrades are committed and hardworking and deserve adequate rest and relaxation. But when it comes to the infinity pool that is internet culture and mass entertainment, we shouldn't let the fear of missing out lead us to miss out on the depth of a Marxist worldview. Will we squander a historic opportunity as a result of excessive use of Netflix, TikTok, or YouTube? Or because between work, school, and one's daily 5 hours spent on a smartphone, there's just not enough time to contribute to the overthrow of capitalism? Learning habits and preferences differ from comrade to comrade, and it's up to each of us to find what works best, whether it's a major change in our daily habits or a deliberate adjustment to our existing routine. Comrades might find some of the following concrete suggestions helpful. Dedicate a regular time slot in your daily routine for reading, for example in the morning before moving on to anything else. Set a daily minimum reading goal, at least 30 minutes or 5 to 10 pages per day. Try reading physical books or an e-reader, rather than reading on a phone, tablet, or computer. Spend some time away from your phone every day. Leave it at home. Go on a walk or read at a park or cafe. Considering adopting systematic study practices that help you absorb the ideas. For example, taking notes, making annotations, or writing short summaries of your reading and preparations for branch meetings and one-on-one discussions. Consider taking a hard break from social media. You might find that you don't miss it as much as you think. Get plenty of sleep. It's vital for concentration and virtually all other aspects of health. Scrolling in bed is proven to negatively impact sleep. Go back to Trotsky's advice, work methodically. Whatever specific reading habits work for you, try to take in the ideas and follow the line of argument. As he explained, it is better to read one book and read it well. It is better to master a little bit at a time and master it thoroughly. Only in this way will your powers of mental comprehension extend themselves naturally. Thought will gradually gain confidence in itself and grow more productive. With these preliminaries in mind, it will not be difficult to rationally allot your time, and then the transition from one pursuit to another will be to a certain extent pleasurable. Appetite comes from eating. And this applies tenfold to the task of nourishing an intellectual appetite. The capacity to read deeply is like a muscle that must be developed and continually used. The more you do it, the easier it gets. You won't always feel like reading. If you try it anyway, you may find that you're soon transported to a different mental state altogether. If you do it enough, reading will become your default habit. In other words, whenever you have a moment to spare, rather than reaching for a phone, tablet, or computer, the act of reaching for a book instead can become second nature, a constant activity and a continual source of political sustenance. To borrow Trotsky's vivid imagery, revolutionary cadres need the ideas of Marxism like the body needs oxygen. We shouldn't view our reading as an assignment, a chore, or an obligation to other comrades. We need to consume a steady political diet that continually raises our level for our own enrichment. When comrades find inspiration from their reading, they will naturally bring it into all their discussions and interactions. We must see learning as a social rather than a solitary process. Ideas that take hold through the dialectical exchange of views, bringing out different angles and making novel and reinforcing connections between them. An inspiring discussion that leaves comrades with a sharper grasp of theory or perspectives is the source of fuel that makes us want to go out into the world and build the revolutionary party that will bury capitalism. So this comes from the Communist newspaper. And now I'm going to meditate.
Sorry, that's not the reality any of us live in. Real reasons are good if you have them, use them, but we don't need them. Real reasons are good if you have them, use them, but we don't need them. Real reasons are good if you have them, use them, but we don't need them. Once you know you don't need them, and the reality can be honored, you're in better shape. Repetition and simplicity. Our brains are just simple machines. Repetition and simplicity.
Hyun Sao. Back. Make a fist. Punch. Tan Sao. Hyun Sao. Back. Tan Sao. Hyun Sao. Wu Sao. Back. Fu Sao number 1. Hyun Sao. Wu Sao. Back. Fu Sao number 2. Hyun Sao. Wu Sao. Back. Fu Sao number 3. Hyun Sao. Wu Sao. Back. Pak Sao. Wu Sao. Palm straight. Tan Sao. Hyun Sao. Back. Tan Sao. Hyun Sao. Wu Sao. Back. Fu Sao. Hyun Sao. Wu Sao. Back. Second Fu Sao. Hyun Sao. Wu Sao. Back. And Fu Sao number 3. Hyun Sao. Wu Sao. Back. Pak Sao. Wu Sao. Palm straight. Tan Sao. Hyun Sao. Back. Gum Sao. Gum Sao. Both hands behind the back. Double rear palm. Both hands to the front. Double forward palm. Double Lan Sao. Look left, look right. Double Fox Sao. Double Lan Sao. Double Jump Sao. Double Tok Sao. Double Jump Sao. Double View Sao. Double Gum Sao. Double Tai Sao. Double Hyun Sao. Back. Pak Sao. Wu Sao. Side palm. Tan Sao. Hyun Sao. Back. Pak Sao. Wu Sao. Side palm. Tan Sao. Hyun Sao. Back. Tan Sao. Jump Sao. Wat Sao. Lao Sao. Hyun Sao. Low side palm. Tan Sao. Hyun Sao. Back. Tan Sao. Jump Sao. Wat Sao. Lao Sao. Hyun Sao. Low side palm. Tan Sao. Hyun Sao. Back. Bong Sao. Tan Sao. High low palm. Tan Sao. Hyun Sao. Back. Bong Sao. Tan Sao. High low palm. Tan Sao. Hyun Sao. Back. Gan Sao. Tan Sao. Clearing hand. Tut Sao. Once. Twice. 3 times. And now punch. 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 Tan Sao. Hyun Sao. Back. Follow along. Cue. Get ready. Hands up. Bend your knees. Toes out. Heels out. Double Tan Sao into double Gan Sao. Double Quad Sao. And back. Left hand make a fist. Punch. Tan Sao. Hyun Sao. Right hand make a fist behind. Punch over. Tan Sao. Hyun Sao. And back. Double Jump Sao. Double eye pierce. Stance turn left. And double Lan Sao. Stance turn right. Stance turn left. Double Folk Sao. Pop Jarn 3 times. Palm strike 3 times. Stance turn right. And Lan Sao. Double Tan Sao. Bong Sao and turn.
So what you do with your body to make it feel good more often will absolutely affect your happiness. It will absolutely affect your anxiety. It will help all of that. And you know how to do that. You eat right, which you can learn. You exercise right, which you can learn. Take it slow and just make it a continuous learning process. Continuously learning what to eat, continuously learning what exercises work best for your particular body. So it's more of a continuous learning thing. That's a good frame. If you can make your body happy because you exercise and it just feels good, it'll make your brain happier. If you can look in the mirror because you exercise and ate right, and you say to yourself, I look pretty darn good for my age, whatever your age is. Yes, absolutely do that. It'll make you feel better.
Nobody that has ever made a dent in the universe ever got there by going gently in the direction of their dreams. They took chances, calculated risks, and they braved the unknown. Comfort consistently played second fiddle to their demands and desire to accomplish. They fought tooth and nail to be the creation that they were called to be. Being galvanized by the fires of pain, regret, and failure, they walk on with complete disregard to perceived limitations. The if I's and wish I would'ves haunt them from yesteryear. And turning a page, they blaze a new path as a new creation. Day by day, brick by brick, they build, stopping at nothing. Comfort zones are poison. Walk on. Comfort zones are poison. Walk on. are truly honest with ourselves, we will admit that some of the most uncomfortable times in our lives resulted in the most improvements in our being. They hurt, but they made us feel alive. They produced pain, but they galvanized us in the fires we needed in order to burn off the parts of us that do not serve us. Now, being on the other side, we can look back with pride at the battle-tested individual that we have become. Once you have been through the trials that have been thrown at you, and you realize that you're not made of glass, you are emboldened with new armor and new equipment. survivors ever got there by going gently in the direction of their dreams. They took chances, calculated risks, and they braved the unknown. Comfort consistently played second fiddle to their demands and desire to accomplish. They fought tooth and nail to be the creation that they were called to be. Being galvanized by the fires of pain,
always knew it. They always knew it. Does complacency come with age? Do I have the urge to back off? Negative. Negative. Back off? Here.
Negativity is that internal feeling pulling at you. That is our natural state. That is our natural state. We're being summoned to move. We earn the positivity in our heart, in our soul, by the positive actions we undertake that preserve us. That's how we stay self-governing. If we just woke up feeling perfect, we wouldn't do shit. We'd be the guy on the couch. You guys gotta realize, some are so subdued by their overeating, by their vice, by their negativity, that they just don't get. They're being told to something greater, being summoned from above. But why today? Told to something greater, being summoned from above. But why today? Why today was I so fucking negative, so angry and frustrated? Perfect. That means I've just been slacking on myself, on my personal development, and I need to go harder. Negativity is that internal feeling pulling at you. That is our natural state. That is our natural state. We're being summoned to move. Negativity is that internal feeling pulling at you. That is our natural state. That is our natural state. We're being summoned to move. If you're that much more negative, go that much harder. That means your call is greater. Your call is greater. Why? How does this make sense? Wisdom is problems overcome. Negativity inside of us is the greatest problem that ever existed. It's ruined more lives than anything. It's basically the culprit of what causes you to partake in vice. If you woke up feeling perfect, would you run to that drink? If you woke up and everything was right, would you smoke that shit? Would you twist that joint? No, you're doing that because something is pulling at you. Just enough. Oh, I got this anxiety. Oh, I can't sleep. Oh, I just gotta forget about this shit. It's fucking tearing me up inside. I mean, I've never met anyone that didn't have negativity that pushed them towards something that they didn't want to do. Negativity is that internal feeling pulling at you. That is our natural state. That is our natural state. We're being summoned to move. Negativity is that internal feeling pulling at you. That is our natural state. That is our natural state. We're being summoned to move. This is where we change it all. We flip that negative. We realize that anger, that frustration, that's just energy and motion. And we use that energy to get into motion to building the life of our dreams. I like that. This contrast created from feeling like such shit, such garbage, stepping into something we don't want to do for the greater good, to feel better on the other side, is what builds us the most. This is what does it. Literally, inaction breeds more fear, more doubt. Action, self-investment, that breeds self-love, that breeds self-respect. 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 Action, self-investment, that breeds self-love, that breeds self-respect.
Inspiration is perishable.